To review the process of warm and cool underpainting, the artist will wet first the entire paper, and I'm just going to quickly go back over this. Warm underpainting, first you wet the entire surface all the way through, and the first warm underpainting is done with yellow ochre and cadmium yellow medium, and the lines are vertical in the water and horizontal as they are placed at the horizon. Then the artist will remember that there's going to be strong cast shadows on the left bank going this way. And in the foreground, the artist will add burnt sienna, yellow ochre, a little bit of raw sienna, and will increase the tonality in the close foreground. And using a bristle brush, like a little old toothbrush, the artist will spatter the foreground and create texture and interest. There is a lot of debris on these beaches and little small rocks and so on. And so in the very immediate foreground, it's good to place these items in the first wash. All right, that adds to it a little bit. Then the artist will look at the warm underpainting and see that it does come down over the hillside right here, and I'm going to add a little bit more strength. And down here slightly on the left-hand side as it comes into the beach area, raw sienna is the best beach color. It's very sandy and it has a wonderful, just earthy tone. The second thing the artist will do is to remember the cool underpainting. And this begins up here at the very top. And again, we've wet the paper first. And the cool wash, following the bead down, I'm using French ultramarine blue and allowing that just to flow right on down. The bead comes, the artist will very quickly catch that bead and gently soften it with a dry brush as it moves wet into dry, and that increases the strength and the tonality of the sky. And allowing it to run atmospherically, it's very soft and very nice. And over here, we have the use of the warm and cool together. And I love to make lavender with French ultramarine and cadmium red, and just adding the lavender tones on the mountain over here on the right-hand side, distant mountains with a lot of small trees, and that helps right there. This same lavender tone is working in the hillside, cascading down in the middle section. Again, I'm using cadmium red medium and French ultramarine blue. And these lavender strokes will create the cast shadows from the trees on that hill over here. Now, on this hill, we use the same color to do cast shadows going up the hill. This is still middle value. And we can now move to a little smaller brush and the same middle tone value. I will come back in for the shapes of the ships, the little ships that are on the shoreline, and they're clustered together and they create one shape. Now there is a cast shadow, again, the same two colors created with the blue and the red, and the cast shadow can be placed on the sand and then leaning more to the blue into the water, it will cast the ripples down here into the water as well. Now we're ready to look at the trees, the distant shoreline, and we love to use the yellow and the blue to create the shades of green. Now there are several different blues that are used. There's Prussian blue, cobalt blue, French ultramarine blue, there's cerulean blue. Each one offers a different tonality. I love to begin with a softer blue, which is cerulean, and using the cadmium yellow and the cerulean, I begin with the middle value and moving right on up the hill. This is Tubbs Hill. It has tremendous history. People come from all over to hike up on this lovely peninsula. And I'm going to just reinforce some of the trees that I started. And I'm going to add a little darker blue, the Prussian blue. I started with cerulean and the yellow, and now I'm going to move to the Prussian and increasing the value and the tonality and increasing as I move towards the foreground. It becomes much darker down in this area. For right now, the stroke I'm using is just the shape of the brush, and a little horizontal stroke makes the entire limb. So we just move right on up the tree, and it's a lot of fun to add the trunk of the tree, and I usually use burnt sienna, and I'll put burnt sienna and a bit of French ultramarine, and I'll make a little pile of that color on one side of my palette, and I'll come back in with a vertical stroke and using sometimes just the edge of a credit card. And you could make tree trunks like this, different shapes of credit cards, some a little smaller will get into little tiny areas like this. Again, the trunk is just one stroke of this little edge of the card, and you have the tree. It kind of works really nice. Kind of a special trick. All right, I'm still needing more trees on this hill, and for right now, I'm going to leave it. I can always go back and add a few more because there are so many trees in this picture. I'm going to move to the hillside. We've already made it quite clear that there's going to be a lot of trees here. And so I want to use the same strokes, and I'm going to just very gingerly, unashamedly, and without any fear, I'm going to jump right in. And you just kind of have to do that. At first, you're tentative because, you know, how's this going to turn out? If you make a big mess, you know, you have to just start over. But I'm using the same colors, and I'm allowing it to lean into the blue or lean into the yellow. Remembering that there are varieties of shapes and varieties of quality, longevity of these trees. Some of them have actually started to turn brown, and that would say they need a little bit of care. But it sure does help a picture to have a bit of the warm tones in the cluster. So I'm going right up, doing a few more trees on this hillside, and wherever I've indicated a cast shadow, there's got to be a tree. So we're going to put one right in here, and not be afraid to make a little different shape. Some of them are a little thinner, some are a little bit heavier in the trunk, and there is one strong one that is down here in the foreground. And I remember that it came down into the beach area. So I'm going to indicate that right now so I won't forget it. I'll put that right there, just like that. And there is another one. I don't see it now because it fell over, but we're going to put it in. And it belongs right on the end of this peninsula. There it is. All that's left of that tree is the stump, of which protrudes right at the water's edge, just right down there. So now I'll come back with this edge of the card again, and I'll add vertical strokes just like that. And this will be for the trunk of the tree. And you keep going back into the paint so you have enough on the edge of the brush. Sometimes it takes a little bit of doing to go back over it a couple of times. All right. Now, every artist has their own style, and pretty soon you decide how your trees are going to look. It's wonderful to be original and creative. Person could copy someone else or copy a photograph, but this wouldn't make it your own. One of the things I urge my students to do is to be very original and to develop their own style, their own purposeful reason for even working. It's all about a personal style and a personal way of expression. There are just about as many ways to express this as there are artists. And so for right now, showing you these little trees and showing you how they work in the foreground has helped this picture take on a bit of life. All right, and so I'm going to add this trunk a little bit more, and I'm going to take Payne's Gray, and I'm going to add a bit more shadow on the sand with the Payne's Gray, giving it a bit more interest. All right. I think that adds quite a bit. And of course, there's other items that you could place on the beach umbrellas. There are many birds that are all over the beach. There certainly could be even people and figures, and that would work. But for this picture, I'm choosing just to limit myself to the little boats that are in the foreground. And looking at them again very carefully, I'm remembering that they're actually catamarans. And at this point, they look like a single hull, so I'm probably just going to stay with a single hulled little skiff. And I'll come back in here and do the transom of this one this way and the transom of that one that way. Then I'll come back in with a lost and found edge in the water area like this, and a few more horizontal strokes. And I want to add the reflections of the trees down into the water. And we'll do that for this one and this one as well, and on the shoreline. And I'm using a bit of Prussian blue and a little bit of French ultramarine, and just gently showing the ripples and realizing that they also are in perspective. And we need a bit more land mass over on this tree, so I'm going to add that, and I'll put that right in here, and a little bit more color on that shoreline as well. All right, probably a little more would help as well, right in here. I'm coming in with burnt sienna, which adds a great deal. It's a wonderful, warm, reddish earth tone. And then this picture really seems to need something in here, probably just a bit more color. All right. Now the boats itself, they have a rudder that protrudes out into the beach area, and it comes out this way. So I'm going to indicate 2 of them, one for each of these little boats, there and there. Okay. And I'm using a softer blue, cobalt blue, and we'll add the shear line to this boat right in here. The shear line is very important. On the right-hand side, it will have a curvilinear appearance. This side will be straight and probably not visible from this angle. So again, the lost and found edge defines the ship, and it gives you a picture of where it's sitting in the water. I'll come over on this side and do the same on this side. All right. Now there are fine details that will come into third value on the little boats, and we'll add those after a while. There's also going to be 3 masts. Actually, there's 2. I ended up with 2 boats. There's going to be a mast that goes right at this point, straight on up. And it can be done with the edge of a card. I will have to put the painting down on a flat surface so I can have a little bit more control. It's really risky to do it this way, but there will be a mast right in here. Let's see if I could do that. Yeah, what do you know? There we go. Look at that. There we go. That gives a vertical mast, and there's another one right here. And the card, the edge of the card, makes a perfect line without any wiggles, and it looks perfect. Then you could do it again and make the line a little bit thicker. Come right in on the side and right in on the side. So now we have the boat defined. And now I can even take that drip and I can make it work for me into the shape of the boat. So watercolor has wonderful little happy accidents, and sometimes it works for you. And in this case, it is working for me. So this boat has a horizontal line that moves that way. And again, this is the rudder. So I'll come back into this part. And this is the transom. And I'm adding a little bit more paint with less water so it makes it stand out. And that is how you move to third value. You move less water, more pigment, and you move right into third value. This concludes this recording.